John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
Hey guys, welcome. It's Hodge, Infinite Potential Healing, Seven of Truth with you once more. Hope this finds you well. Hope you're finding strength, clarity, and in your physical body you're feeling awesome despite whatever perception of the narrative and craziness is going on around you. It's been a very interesting and potent time for myself. Just been processing quite a lot and feel like I've hit other gears and things like that. So I haven't interacted with too many people, but a bit of a consistency I feel with people is, despite how things are, there's a consistency of feeling better than ever in many respects. So I don't know what's going on with you, but I hope that's a parallel for you, where despite certain perceptions of things up there, feeling freaking awesome, right? And if you've been across my recent releases and stuff, I've offered a lot, and I hope if you have been thorough with them and investigated into them, you've gained a great deal. They're offering a lot of data for your algorithm of your perceptions and stuff, which is, I'm not here to tell you how it is. I see it how it is for me. And I do so appreciating the responsibility of what I offer. And just offer it as a variable for you to add to your algorithm of your own pattern recognition going on. Because if you've been with me for quite a while, like the last year or so, I've evolved my perception of appreciation of what's going on, and I'm not trying to appear like I'm pushing it or I'm indoctrinated by it. I'm discerning the crap out of it as well, but the Ashayana stuff to me is a bit of a codex, and it's offered me this sort of foundation of appreciation of WTF has been going on and stuff. So this video I'm going to label sort of a standalone, and it's a lattice that can be related to a lot of the stuff, but I want to give a bit of a big overview. The Amplify the Echos series is definitely related to this, but what I want to do is offer sort of a standalone that will offer sort of a bigger overview sort of thing of what's been going on. And then I'm going to offer a component in the reality now, which will be related about food and inflation, and something that isn't really appreciated just yet, but I think it will be an ingredient to the potential of humanity that will unfold over time. So it will offer data for a lot of people that may not be as thorough across my older stuff now, to be an ally of just trusting what your body is sort of probably, if you're coming into an appreciation of the body language, literally, of what your body, like your technology, your consciousness is writing in, is perhaps trying to have a dialogue with you. This will be a pretty interesting variable, right? So this video I'm going to call Our Ability to Endure, Outlast and Overcome, because what we as a species have been through is so freaking amazing, right? And I'm very appreciative of that will to know more. Like, I've got this real tenacity to just constantly challenge myself and expand. Don't take it for granted what I know and assume everything is true and all that. So that aspect of my nature, you guys are probably the same, right? So initially what I want to do is I'm just going to offer a couple clips here. One will be like a cool Greg Braden clip that really inspired me. If I grab my other. This is a book that Greg Braden was a bit of a teacher when I started getting going. I don't know how much you're across him and stuff, but if you've gone through my Conscious Explorer series, he's throughout it, particularly a lecture called Deep Truth. What I'm going to do is offer you a quote that he offers in this book. It's really powerful. And then I'm going to offer you a component of the Ashayana teachings, actually with her husband reading out some stuff. It's a bit, like I said, the big scale overview of what we've endured as a species. So it will include, like, the Echo series is up to 9 now, so it's quite long. This clip that will be at the start will be an offering of many things that are offered in that, to just to expand it even more, because Echoes Part 9 I included many variables relative to the Babylon massacre, which is where we were hit pretty hard about 5,000 years ago and wiped and set up for failure to be sort of how humanity is, particularly the New Age spiritual community and the ET community, which is fascinating in itself. Because if you watch my recent release, Echoes Part 9, I offered this image. That's about the radio body that's overlaying Earth to create a barrier between us and our connection to Earth and stuff. What I offered was some variables relative to the off-world sort of thing, which to me is far more of a big player that isn't actually in alignment, alright, than even I allowed myself to accept. And I've done Galactic Special Forces missions and stuff with off-world stuff and actually kicking their butts and stuff. So to me it's actually time to raise the bar of discernment on that sort of level, and it's really interesting. This is, those of you into that sort of stuff, I really highly recommend just going and having a look at Exopolitics, Michael Salla, Salla, and this is October 2022, so have a look around some of the recent releases related to October 2022, and if you've been thorough with the Ashayana stuff, just have a listen to what the people are saying. Like, if you've listened to the Echo series, really have a look and look at the following, alright? Because what I talk about is, in the Echo series, about humanity has Stockholm Syndrome, which is a metaphor of gravitation to our perpetrators that have created the, say, Babylon massacre. Alright? So just have a listen to this clip. And what I'm going to do at the end is offer another part to that, of how basically in the 1750s the New Age era was all set up for failure. Alright? So things like guides and channeling and all that sort of stuff, it's all strategically prepared for this era now, right, that we're living through. So this video, basically the theme is, right, our ability to endure, outlast and overcome all this stuff. Because while there's a lot of craziness going on and there's uncertainty, as I said, in the recalibration to a new energetic reality, the uncertainty variable is definitely being pumped up underneath us to create this future uncertainty. To me, that's a perception of the projection of the structures in control wanting us to not to be destabilized, to be malleable. Because when we go into fear and uncertainty, there's a retraction into the familiarity. And so the money system is being, the value per unit of money is being diminished. So the costs of goods are going up. That's inflation. And I just want to offer a canary in the coal mine relative to the potential with the inflation. It does have some benefits to us. And I'll get into the main body after the video. So I'll just leave you with those two videos. Alright? And then I'll meet you on the other side, because as I said, it's the bigger scales of what we've endured. I'm offering the clip of the pattern recognition, the age of synthesizers, which I've done a video on many years ago. And offering this as sort of a teaching, as I've been pretty big on nutrition, food, and the malnourishment thing. Like, if you don't have a temple to operate in, the higher level functions are going to be challenging. But to me, the blowback of the inflation will be the potential for that in people and stuff. So I'll leave it with you and I'll see you on the other side. Enjoy.
E.O. Wilson says this beautifully. He says the world from this point forward is going to be run by synthesizers. People that can take a lot of information from a lot of different places and make the right decisions at the right time and think critically about it. So it's no longer enough to be an expert in one field, because the world doesn't know those boundaries. But we're being asked to draw from everything that we know and to synergize it in a way that we've never done before. So as the world changes in ways that we're not used to, faster than we've ever seen, our lives are changing as well. And we're all learning together. And this is where I think the synergy of the ancient and the indigenous wisdom, married with the best science of today, through community resilience, is the key to bring us full circle. And that's where I'm going to stop right now. Thank you.
Okay, long-term problems and immediate solutions associated with the Atlantean conspiracy and roundtables. The sacred science mechanics by which the planetary Christos realignment can be fulfilled have long been hidden within the legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. The Round Table of Arthurian legend referred to signet councils. The word signet also refers to stargates. In the ancient knowledge of the Palladia-Urtite cloister races, The Signet Councils were the specific groups of angelic humans that assembled to run the corrected fire letter sequences into Earth's planetary shields during stellar activation cycles to prevent pole shift and progressively restore Earth's D12 Christos divine blueprint, otherwise known as the Shield of Aramatena. The Round Table of Arthurian legend referred to the Rainbow Round Table. The Rainbow Round Tables are groups of angelic humans assembled in 4 evolutionary rounds who are commissioned to run the Rainbow Ray or Kunda Ray primal sound current from beyond the 15-dimensional time matrix into Earth's planetary shields during stellar activation cycles. Running of the Rainbow Round during SACs, or stellar activation cycles, which I'll use from now on, SACs, enables the planet to retain its natural electromagnetic balances to avert pole shift and restores the organic D12 planetary Christos alignment. Since the 9558 BC Atlantean flood, knowledge of the Rainbow Round Tables has been intentionally hidden from the angelic human races of contemporary Earth by human Illuminati and fallen angelic races that desire to create pole shift during the long-anticipated 2000 through 2017 AD SAC. They hope to use the 2000-2017 SAC to finally fulfill their plan of clearing Earth's real estate of angelic human races to later resettle their hybrid races on Earth after the dust settles, under a one-world order, anti-Christic agenda of totalitarian exploitation and dominion. Now, the conspiracy. The fallen angelic Illuminati human anti-Christic agenda gained a stronghold on Earth in 2500 BC when Nibiru and Marduk Anunnaki, which are composed of Anunnaki, Omicron and Draconians, seized control of Nibiru and Earth's D4 Universal Solar Stargate 4 in an event known as the Lucifer Rebellion. The name Lucifer comes from a hybrid Pleiadian Nibiruan Anunnaki race that emerged through combining the density 2 Nibiruan Lulitan family of the Toth Enki Zephylium Anunnaki lineage with the Satane family of the Marduk Anunnaki line and the D11 Necromaton, the beetle reptiles, the fallen seraphim race of Andromeda. From this hybridization, the Pleiadian Samjazi Luciferian Anunnaki and Marduk Necromaton Luciferian Anunnaki races of Sirius B, Nibiru, and Alpha and Omega Centauri emerged. This collective of Anunnaki races promoting an anti-Christic dominion agenda became known historically as the Luciferians and were occasionally joined by other Anunnaki and Illuminati human race lines in their quest for the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is a term used in reference to the 12 universal signet stargates of the Universal Templar Complex, to which the angelic human race holds the sacred commission of guardian. The Grail quest began long before angelic humans were seated on Earth, and it has been the primary theme of motivation behind all of the forbidden and recorded distorted human history. The Grail quest for Earth's planetary Templar stargates continued into angelic human 12 tribe seeding 3, following destruction of seedings 1 and 2 via Grail quest wars with Anunnaki and Draconian fallen angelic legions. During the 2500 BC Lucifer Rebellion, Anunnaki Luciferians gained partial control over Earth's Templar through a device called the Nibiruan Diodic Crystal Grid, which is still in operation today and serves a key role in the potential outcome of the 2000 through 2017 AD stellar activation cycle. In 22326 BC, the Luciferian Anunnaki races decimated Guardian races, attempting to intervene in an event known as the Iani Massacre, which took place on what remains as the Lemurian continent, now known as Kauai, Hawaii. In 21,900 BC, they collapsed the firmament hydrosuspension fields of Lohas, northeast Atlantis, in the Lohas-Keltec Druidic freeze-out, in an attempt to destroy the Magi angelic human Grail kings in exile there. This event gave us our last major glacial period
of 21,900 BC through 14,000 BC. In 20,000 BC, they staged the vigorous Sassanian invasion of Russia. In 10,500 BC, the next phase of the Luciferian dominion plan unfolded in an event called the Luciferian conquest, at which time the Atlantean islands of Nohasa and Brua fell to Anu Melchizedek, Anunnaki human hybrid, and fallen Jehovian and Luciferian Anunnaki control. The anti-Christian agenda of the Luciferian Anunnaki races, and by the way, not all Anunnaki are in the Luciferian category. Some run competing dominion agendas. The agenda of the Luciferian Anunnaki races was formally mandated in Brua, Atlantis in 9560 BC under an agreement called the Luciferian Covenant. The Luciferian Covenant is part of three competing one world order dominion agendas, collectively referred to as the Atlantean Conspiracy. The Anunnaki races of the Luciferian Covenant orchestrated the Atlantean flood in 9558 BC and the intentional rewriting of human history since this time. Forbidden History reveals a long-term plot within which the anti-Christic agendas of the Atlantean Conspiracy emerged after the flood and into the present day. The Luciferian Covenant continued after the 9558 BC flood in the 8900 BC Lhasa King Sumerian invasion, the 8400 BC Scarab King Egyptian invasion, and the 7500 BC Knights Templar invasion. The infiltration continued to the 5900 BC Centaurian War, when the Sirius B Maharaji Blue Human Guardians intervened directly with air raids to prevent Draconian and Luciferian forces from claiming world dominion. This event is partially documented in the ancient Hindu text of the Mahabharata. In 3650 BC, the Nibiruan Luciferians orchestrated the Mayan raids, and in 3470 BC, the Babylon massacre was waged, in which Pleiadian Nibiruan legions, Galactic Federation, and the Anu Melchizedek human Illuminati gained temporary control over the Magi Grail King's Ark of the Covenant gold box, which contained the rod and staff Stargate tools. In conjunction with the Nibiruan diodic crystal grid at Stonehenge, England, the Ark tools were used in Babylon to cause temporary collapse of Earth's magnetic grids and set portions of the fire letter sequences in Earth's planetary shields into reverse sequence. Planetary shield distortions of the 3470 BC Babylon massacre caused mutation in the human DNA template that shortened the human lifespan, blocked higher sensory perception, caused loss of race memory, and a scrambling of our original language patterns, which are built upon DNA template fire letter sequencing. Our race has been amnesiac, dying young, and babbling on in rhetorical conflict ever since. This historic event was recorded as the biblical Tower of Babel story. Following the Babylon massacre of 3470 BC, fallen angelics selected chosen ones, Anu Melchizedek hybrid descendants, for minimal DNA template repair and implantation, through which the Luciferians and competing Jehovian Anunnaki and Draconian legions could begin their progressive infiltration of human spiritual and political systems. Through the technology of remote channeling, conducted through unnatural DNA template implantation, the chosen ones have been progressively fed Anunnaki history and distorted patriarchal, war god spiritual teachings in a strategic and intentional replacement of the angelic human heritage. They are once again channeling to us and visiting today as the dominant force in the New Age and UFO movements.
welcome back. I hope you enjoyed them. Gave you a good heads up of what I said to contemplate the bigger scales of things, alright? So, what I want to get into is, I'll just show you this image. I drew this quick because again, it's quite late in my day and these take me a while to make, so I did one pretty quick, alright? So I just drew this, alright? So just see, like the sun, the earth. To me, the energies are potentially rising, alright? There's stuff out there maybe that says things are bad, things are going to go catastrophic and all this blah blah blah, and maybe they are, right? So if you've gone across the AshayanaDeane stuff, that gets into 950 billion years and 250 billion years of war. And just for a heads up, I actually added a new the section that I had with Ashayana relative to her husband Michael talking. I actually thought I included that in the downloads on the Ashayana page, because I listen to it all the time, but I realized it isn't there. So I've actually created another file in the Atlantean conspiracy to download part 3. So it's up there, and you're welcome to go grab it, and it's well worth it. It's all about King Arthur and Camelot and all that sort of stuff, so it's really awesome. But the clips I included there and the last one are parts of it, so I recommend it to add it to your loop. But what I want to just say is, from my perspective, I feel the potentials are enormous. Everything is sort of brewing to our favor. Control and falsehood has a huge energetic cost and demand, whereas truth and efficiency and harmony is very aligned to the benefits that are coming. So but in that, right, so see from my perspective, we'll just get to the point, like there's beneficial energies relative to the sun, universe, earth, mother herself, and all that, which is, I got this equation of life force, because big thing I'm into is, I was debating whether to include this in foundational concepts, which are all about life force and investing in change and stuff like that. So they're out there if you want to go through them. But let's say, like I've got the Metatron, blah, 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 control. Doesn't want us to be high frequency. I want to be limited, right? Let's say everything is, not everything, but the inertia of what is around us is the potential for an increased expression of life force in our body technology. So this, if I get across to it, so this little star at the top here is, say, abilities, but those little dots below, say they're blocks and they're unresolved stuff and that. So the metaphor I see is, if you really go back and listen to Echoes Part 9 and all the Babylon massacre sort of stuff and all the shit that's been inserted into us and all the complexity and all that, I've done the Influences show and all that's Part 1 and 2. And I'll do a future one and stuff, but there's a lot of frackery. Let's just get to the point, alright? And so that stuff, if we're running at, say, 30% life force, in our body technology in our defense that might require 60 or 70% life force to defend against it, we're vulnerable, and so it can get in. And that's where I'm big on the spleen and stuff, where the spleen is like our universal USB port to the pranic energy that's all around us, alright? So that's just a metaphor. So let's just say from a quick perspective that the majority of humanity have never done healing. They've never looked to resolve stuff. They've been through a lot of trauma, plus all their DNA lineages have been through trauma. It's all been fracked with and all sorts of stuff going on. So we can all have a lot of stuff that we have that we don't know. And that's where I'm just sort of suggested I appreciate all this, and the likelihood of me knowing all I got is there's a higher potential that I might not know. So that's where I've sought out healing and all that, blah, blah, blah. So that's my metaphor of that and the rationale for being very thorough on that. But let's just say the vast majority have no idea even about healing. And so, but there's an inertia in the universe relative to where we are and what's going on, that we're getting increased potential in our bodies, which also has a potential that, say if you're a high frequency being and like someone that's not comes in your field, then you might actually be the boost, right, to them. And so their shit comes up that they've got to face in your presence, and then they blame you and they project it, all that sort of stuff, right? But let's just say, as a concept, that there's a lot of stuff unresolved in people that's potential, right? That's why I'm infinite potential. There's so much potential in humanity from my perspective, but this stuff might be coming up. And so a lot of people want, say, 5D, high frequency, blah, 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 which is in the narrative. I'm all about 12D now, all right? Nothing less than 12D and blasting anything that's below that. But you've got to understand, if you went through the influences part 2, I talked about there's new rules, right, with the higher frequency stuff. Just the volume of stuff is increased, including the issues, all right? It's not just plain sailing, everything's going to be like kumbaya. The chances of having to resolve and deal with more is going to be there, all right? So what if we just use that as a variable in the algorithm of what's going on, all right? If I go to another diagram, so I showed this in recalibration of algorithm processing. So say one of these big circles of the variables out there is the unresolved in humanity, right, that's bubbling up because the frequencies are coming in. So let's just say that that can be a variable in the reality that the system doesn't want us to deal with, but it's there. And so there's no GPS coordinates of knowing that that is it and that can be done. So the stuff going on with people can be brewing up and they don't even know that they've got it, right? And you imagine like a billion people with an unresolved issue all having a collective issue and trauma and stuff. So the frequencies are raising and then they all got this stuff and they don't like it and they don't want to face it, so they're trying to suppress it. And a lot of people look outside than themselves. So the whole New Age sort of spiritual sort of theme with the false aspect of it is to look outside and get help and stuff. And that might be a paradox with what I say relative to seek healing and stuff, but it's not meant to be. It's a separate thing, right? But just see there's a market for the unresolved sort of stuff. Like I talk about the outrage mob and that aren't really willing to heal. A lot of the outrage would rather be Mr. Robots, right? And I've said that in the past about watching that show, because it's a brilliant expression of the consequences of what happens to people when they're so contorted by their unresolved stuff, right? And long story short, that shows about a couple of people that basically have huge traumas and they contort the world to fit with their stuff, right? So if you watch that show for a journey relative to healing and all the corruption in people and all that sort of stuff, it's exquisite teaching, right? From a educational point of view. It's horrific and it's challenging and it's horrible, but it's brilliant in that development over time and stuff. So it's late again and I don't want this to go too long and with all the clips I'll use, but let's just say as a variable in your the pattern recognition synthesizer, right? So what if nature is benefiting, right? So I might show some cool pictures of what I collected during the week, because we're fortunate to be in spring down here, and I don't know what you're like, where you are, or what you've noticed in your region, but the growth this year just seems to be epic. Like the weeds and all that, everything has just gone on steroids from the growth. Like nature is just booming and flourishing in all these frequencies. And so that's an ingredient in my pattern recognition, right? So what I might be doing is showing some flowers and stuff that I took during the week, just on a walk and just feeling it. Because it's hard to really believe it's mid-October, like this year has flown, as you always say, but it's almost the end of the year, end of 2022. So I talked in the past about going to my food and market and stuff like that, and there's someone out there that's very wise with the medicinal qualities of food and stuff like that. So what I might be doing is showing just the experience I had this week going to the markets, because this is sort of mid-October, early October. There was a lot of solar flares and stuff like that. All right, so we're a couple of weeks after that. So the food in that is grown and it's been harvested and offered to the public and stuff. So one of my friends, she I remember her wisdom relative to her teachings and stuff, and what she said is that if you find purple in a plant, there's a potential medicinal aspect to it. All right, so I love one of the staples. I have very simple food intake and stuff like that. All right, so one of the things I eat quite regularly is broccoli, and I've mentioned that in the past. Probably, I think it was the solar flare video mid 2021 that I offered, and broccoli was heavily affected by the sun, right? But this instance is very interesting because I look at the stems, and I probably have the images of the particular broccoli I bought, and the purple sort of aspects of the stem are so bright this week, right? I love to explore with the food and see how it feels in my body and stuff like that, and my food whisper aspect, and listen to my body tech, what it says and stuff. But I also keep foods very stable and regular to sense the variance and the subtleties, which is why the expression I do with the images and keep it simple, and the location and that I try and keep it very stable for a frequency reference for you guys to watch and stuff. Right? So just moving on, you guys know I'm pretty across the money and stuff like that, and I do use the money system as a canary in the coal mine to see what's going on, and there's the uncertainty variable with money is pretty big, and putting up interest rates and all that has sucked the money out of the system, sort of thing, because they do that to suck the money out of the system to make the unit costs less, all right, because there's an abundance of money out there, and so they try and keep inflation between 2 and 3% year on year and stuff, and it's gone crazy, all right. And what I'll do is I'll just show you an article from Zero Hedge now. I took an image of it. It's related to Pepsi in the US reporting its figures, and inflation in different parts of the world is different and stuff. So let's just use it as a barometer. And what, from like back in my trading days 10 years ago and stuff, it was just really fascinating because they used to always report inflation, what it is, and it was freaking a lie. I was telling someone during the week that it was fascinating because they always lied about it because they didn't want inflation to be an issue in the past. So it's fascinating how they're actually employing it as a tool now. Right? There's a purpose behind that, right? For various reasons, but it was they never used to say, from because the US is the reserve currency, right? It's the go-to from the money narrative system that everyone goes to when things are bad, all right? The US dollar goes up when things are bad, which you think US dollar and the system with $31 trillion debt now is just like ludicrous, but it's a fundamental of the market. Right? It's not an ideology sort of thing, oh, this system is crap, blah, blah, blah. It's a market fundamental, and until the fundamentals change, which who knows what's going to happen, right? But the perception that they're fundamentally going to change has been since the 70s and stuff, and it hasn't yet, all right? So that's the reality we're in, right? But because the US dollar is a fundamental of the reality, it's always whatever the Federal Reserve does and stuff and refers to in that is important for every part of the world, all right? And it's interesting. What I was getting back to is that, say, the energy costs were never really included in the inflation figures, but they are now, And so this article from Zero Hedge relative to Pepsi says that while the reported number was about 8%, Pepsi was saying it was 17%. And if you go to the article, Pepsi have made more profit out of this time than ever. So they're all these companies, they're putting prices up, but they're still increasing their profits and all that sort of stuff. So they're passing their price on to consumers and blah, blah, blah. But what I'm getting to is, this is a cool teaching in this, right? So you guys are probably wise to processed foods and all that sort of stuff. So what I want to do, we'll just offer that article and you can go get it. Maybe I'll link it, the particular one, so you can go read it and stuff. But it's an interesting, the reason why I'm putting that is that the corporation was wanting to really be honest in a respect of how much the price increased, and they're saying it's 17% for a year, which is a lot. So say 20%, right? If something is $5, 20% of that is $1. So the year price is $1 extra, which is a lot, right? Particularly when it's normally 3% and stuff, and price can get absorbed and blah, blah, blah. But so what I want to do is just highlight, though, that PepsiCo and all the potato chips and all that, it's all processed food. So there's all additives, all chemicals, blah, blah, blah. If there's a guy called Dr. Russell Blaylock that's sort of been forgotten, but he used to be on 10 years ago about excitotoxins and what MSG does to the brain. He was a neuroscientist, and he saw that basically excitotoxins explode the brain cells and stuff. So all these additives and stuff, they're all having to be manufactured, say from oil and stuff like that. So inflation is raising the price of the processed foods, if that makes sense. So what I want to show is just a really awesome teacher by the name of Gary Taubes, and he wrote a book called Big Fat Lies, Taubes, Taubes. And this is from a section from a lecture that I included in part 13, I think, in my Conscious Explorer from 2014-15. So this lecture is from 2008, but he wrote a book called Big Fat Lies. He was an investigative journalist and stuff. So what I want to do is just offer this clip, because he talks about in this clip a particular tribe that was very abundant in food and stuff, and they became very obese because like the metaphor of the Native Americans and stuff. And so if the bigger layer of Ashayana stuff you understand, and if you go through this particular one with like the Atlantean conspiracy, there's a section where they go and remove all the Native Americans and stuff because it's all Grail bloodlines and indigos and magi and all that sort of stuff. So what I'm sort of offering is that one aspect of the system is to take us away from natural foods and all that, which is in harmony with our bodies. And so what happened to the particular tribe is they went from being very abundant on food to having the processed reservation sort of stuff like flour and coffee and those sort of things, versus like their natural regional foods when they were taken from their land and put on reservations, right? So I'll just show you this and then I'll talk to you on the other side. So enjoy.
What I'm going to try and do in the next hour or so is shift your paradigm on everything you've ever believed about why we get fat. And I'm going to do it from the perspective of science. So often you sit in these lectures and you get a title like, Big Fat Lies. You think I'm going to talk about nutrition, I'm going to talk about health. I'm going to look at this like a scientist does and should. So the reason I have this first quote from Claude Bernard is because I've been writing about science for 25 years before Claude Bernard sort of put in my mind what it's really about. He said, to have our first idea of things, we must see those things. To have an idea about a natural phenomenon, we must first of all observe it. The mind of man cannot conceive an effect without a cause, so that the sight of a phenomena always awakens an idea of causation. All human knowledge is limited to working back from observed effects to their cause. So one thing I'm going to do, which you will not see in the science of obesity and nutrition when you read in the papers, I'm actually going to look at the observations, and we're going to try and come up with a theory that explains them. And for the sort of basic principle of what that theory should do, I use Isaac Newton's variation on Occam's razor. We are to admit no more causes of natural things than such as are both true and sufficient to explain their appearances, which means why use a complicated explanation if a simple one will explain all the facts, basically. Fat Louisa. So what I'm going to do, again, you have a hypothesis. I know this sounds obvious, okay? It should be, chiseled in stone, but it's a hypothesis like any other hypothesis. So what you want to do is say, can it explain all the observations? And can we find observations that it can't explain? So this is Fat Louisa, this young lady here. She's a Pima Indian. And that photo was taken in 1902. And so we're going to talk about the Pima, because the Pima are the poster children for obesity and diabetes in America. Supposedly 1 out of every 2 Pima adults are diabetic, and some huge proportion are obese. And the point is, in the mid-19th century, the Pima were the most affluent Native American tribe. They are located in Arizona on the Gila River. And there was a wagon train route to California that went through there. And a U.S. battalion went through in 1846, and the surgeon John Griffin, who went on to L.A. and started like the first medical clinic in the Pueblo of Los Angeles, Griffin described the Pima as sprightly and in fine health. And he talked about the greatest abundance of food, and they take care of it well. And every traveler who went through, I have about 20 different memoirs of travelers, soldiers, doctors who went through the Pima territory. They grew their own crops. They grew melons. They grew wheat. They grew they ate this fruit of the saguaro cactus. They fished and ate clams from the Gila River, and they hunted widely. And what happened is, in 1849, gold is discovered in California. Over the next 10 to 15 years, between 20 and 60,000 49ers head west through the Pima territory. And the U.S. government, the Pima are so affluent, the U.S. government asked them to feed the pioneers as they're going west on the wagon trains, which they do, and they also protect them from the Apaches. And then from about after the 1860s, Anglos start moving into the neighborhood, and they start diverting the Gila River water to irrigate their own farms. And by the 1880s, the Pima are going through what they call the period of famine, the era of famine, that lasts for 20 years until they're put on a reservation and they're put on government rations. And in 1901, 1902, Frank Russell, a Harvard anthropologist, comes to spend a year. Russell had tuberculosis, so he was hoping that doing his research in Arizona would cure it, which he didn't. And so he spends a year with the Pima. He writes a seminal study. He takes this photo of Fat Louisa, and he says, many old persons exhibit a degree of obesity that's in striking contrast with the tall and sinewy Indian conventionalized in popular thought. And the following year, 1903 to 1905, Alex Hrdlicka, who went on to be the curator of physical anthropology at the Smithsonian for 30 years, a very well-respected physician turned anthropologist, he was traveling around the southwestern United States and Mexico examining Native American tribes. He spent 8 years doing it. And about the Pima and the Southern Utes, he wrote, especially well-nourished individuals, females and also males, occur in every tribe and at all ages. But real obesity is found almost exclusively among the Indians on reservations and among adults of less than 60 years of age. This woman right here is a Southern Ute that Hrdlicka took a photo of. The point is, the Pima have gone from being extremely affluent through a period of famine to being extremely impoverished, living on government rations to stay alive, and they've gone from being sprightly and fine health to having an obesity problem. So they've gone the opposite way that our hypothesis predicts they should have gone. Both Hrdlicka and Russell struggled to make sense of this. Russell suggests that maybe there were some fat-producing elements in their food. Hrdlicka considered the possibility that maybe because they lived on reservations, they were less physically active than they used to be. And so this is why they were obese, but he couldn't figure out why the women tended to have the obesity problem, and the women worked much harder than the men. They were basically treated as beasts of burden in these tribes. And then he even pointed out that the Pueblo, who live in the essentially cities, who have been sedentary for 1,000 years, did not have an obesity problem. So in 1928, a couple of University of Chicago economists go to do a study of the Sioux on the South Dakota Crow Creek Reservation. And these people are incredibly poor, poor beyond our imagination. They live in 1 to 2 room shacks. And again, this is a Native American reservation in South Dakota in 1928. 1 to 2 room shacks, unfit for occupancy, 48 people per room. 40% of the children live in homes without toilets. Water is drawn from the river. 15 families with 32 children on this reservation are living chiefly on bread and coffee. 40% of the women, 25% of the men, and 10% of the children would be termed, quote, distinctly fat, while 20% of the women, 1 in 4 men and 1 in 4 children are extremely thin. This is something we're going to talk about. Obesity and malnutrition coexisting in the same incredibly impoverished population. And remember, today we're explaining these levels of obesity as caused by prosperity, but this was not the problem these people had in 1928. Just to catch up on the Pima, in 1954, the Bureau of Indian Affairs in Arizona did a study of the Pima, and the people who did it said over 50% of the children are obese by their 11th birthday, living in widespread poverty. They also said that, unlike the Anglos, they continued to get fatter as they got heavier, and I would say today, you wouldn't say unlike the Anglos. By the way, this kind of stuff, this history of obesity in these populations, nobody's ever bothered to do this before. We have an obesity research community. I just want to point out that has been claiming that obesity is caused by prosperity, but they've never actually looked to see if you could find counterexamples, which is all we're doing. So there's a few more paradoxes with our positive caloric balance hypothesis. One is, if obesity is caused by overeating and sedentary behavior, it should be fairly easy to just get physically active, eat a little bit less, and reverse it, right? It takes years, sometimes decades, for obesity to manifest itself. It's a slight effect year to year. Why can't we just reverse it? And what you find, so because that's so difficult, what you find is this weird sort of inconsistency, internal inconsistency in the literature. This is one of my favorite examples, but it's typical. It's just a little extreme. It's from the Handbook of Obesity, which was edited by 3 of the major figures in the field. And they say dietary therapy remains a cornerstone of treatment, and the reduction of energy intake continues to be the basis of successful weight reduction programs. And then about 2 paragraphs later, you see this sentence: the results of dietary therapy are known to be poor and not long-lasting. Calorie-restricted semi-starvation diets. Back in the 1970s and before, if you told somebody to eat less, you would put them on a diet of 1,400 or 1,200 calories or sometimes less. They used to be known as semi-starvation diets. The term has been dropped, I think, because it implies that nobody's willing to semi-starve forever. The Cochrane collaboration is a collaboration that I like to quote because they were formed to do unbiased, systematic reviews of the evidence. And as they put it, weight loss achieved in clinical trials of semi-starvation diets, quote, is so small as to be clinically insignificant. So again, if obesity is caused by eating more or too much, how come eating less only leads to clinically insignificant results? And the same can be said for exercise. I could quote you data. My favorite example, this is the American Heart Association, the American College of Sports Medicine, last August came out with their guidelines for physical activity. And they said, they want us all to exercise, but they had this sentence in it, this pair of sentences. It is reasonable to assume that persons with relatively high daily energy expenditures would be less likely to gain weight over time compared with those who have low energy expenditures. So people who go for 10-mile runs should be less likely to gain weight over time than people who sit on the couch watching television. That's what that sentence says. So far, data to support this hypothesis are not particularly compelling. Now, this hypothesis is well over 100 years old. And one of the things I learned when I was writing about physics and other subjects, engineering, is that when you spend time working on a hypothesis, if it's true, you'll accumulate data to support it. You won't end up with saying 100 and some odd years after you came up with it that the data to support this hypothesis are not particularly compelling. Another way to phrase that is this hypothesis is most likely wrong. This is just one of the many paradoxes I love. I couldn't resist. If you eat 2,700 calories a day, we're always being told to count calories to maintain our weight. If you eat 2,700 calories a day, which is about average, men and women meshing together, that's 1 million calories a year, actually 985,000. 10 million calories in a decade. That's 12 tons of food. That should be 1 decade. I just made up this. 12 tons of food in a decade. So if you want to maintain your weight to within 5 pounds over a couple of decades, that requires an accuracy of 0.1% calorie counting, or poundage counting, as you want to put it. And Eugene Dubois, who was one of the probably pioneers of the field of nutrition in the US and wrote the seminal textbook prior to World War II, as he put it in his textbook, there's no stranger phenomenon than the maintenance of a constant body weight under marked variation in bodily activity and food consumption. We can't possibly measure the calories we consume to 0.1%. So the question isn't why anyone gets fat. The question is, how does anyone avoid it? Or how do we end up not ending up all anorexic if that's the kind of accuracy we need?
Hope you enjoyed that clip. He's a cool teacher. He's one you probably never heard of, but he's well worth it. I don't know what's out there still, but just to move along and not make this too long. So what I'm offering is, there's an interesting thing sort of brewing with the inflation with food, right? So if you got the consequences of processed food on, say, the indigenous and stuff, I'm big on nutrition, right? So his book, Big Fat Liars, and the lecture is really awesome. Maybe I'll include a little bit of a clip of what his conclusions are as well. I'm not sure at the end. I haven't made that clip yet. I've just gone through and started reviewing it, and my day was getting a bit late. But long story short, what I learned about malnutrition is the body can actually become obese. It's a bit like a big net trying to capture the minute amounts of nutrition in the foods that don't have any, and so our body reacts in a certain way, right? And it's not so much here, but I know sort of the poverty level, and you know, there's a whole thing about carbohydrates and calories and all that, but you can have 2,000 calories of chocolate and 2,000 calories of red meat, and what they don't count isn't the nourishment in the actual nutritional content of that food, alright? And I hate to use meat if you're vegan and all that sort of stuff, but we'll just get to the point as an example. The logic with understanding the body relative to all those things isn't set up for our betterment, alright? So this is the thing, right? And I might just show you that Zero Hedge article. What I'm getting, alright, is, say if inflation, there's going to be blowback relative inflation and stuff, right? So the pattern for a long time is that processed foods have been very cheap, and high frequency organic foods and vegetables and stuff have been too high, right? So a lot of these excitotoxins, it's really interesting. So say for instance you might desire ketchup or tomato sauce, right? And there's a reason for that. You might desire it because in tomatoes itself there might be an enzyme or something that your body craves. This is the body, the food whisperer, listening to your body tech, what it says. But our interpretation of that is distorted because it goes into the process sort of tomato sauce. So I know like pizzas and all that, you know, there's a lot of hate projected to all those sort of things and people feel negative about it. But I find, say, when I eat some cheap pizzas, the tomato sauce or the like the paste relative to the base on it, I get ulcers because there's additives in them that in my mouth that destroys the cells of my body and stuff. My body is really sensitive. As much as I love a pizza like everyone else, it's just to me, I've learnt to overcome in that era when I was quite poor, having to really live off not much. The nourishment in the food and the effect was very, very obvious, and it was a great teaching for me. Not one that most people have had to do, and I wouldn't do it proactively either. It was just the situation I was in to endure, and what I had to learn was nourishment and the life force in food and stuff, and get very simple and realizing you don't actually need that much and stuff. The quality matters, and that like the variable of life force is definitely a factor. And I'm probably going to show you a clip that I may have shown quite a while ago relative to Harry Oldfield and the life force content of organic versus inorganic food. There's a short video on my channel that's quite old, but I'll include it because he uses Keelian technology to see the aura and the energetic effervescence of organic food versus processed and highly cooked food that have had the life force processed out of it. So in that Conscious Explorer Part 30, I include a guy by the name of Paul Check, and he calls processed foods dead food, like pasteurized milk and stuff. They've been boiled to have no energetic nutritional content, and the enzymes are all breaking down that are beneficial to us and stuff, right? So what I'm just trying to give you an overview is that the life force content of food is being diminished. The nutritional content isn't actually there, what our body needs, and so society reacts to how it is and stuff. And then if I show you this again, then say the system has sort of tried to grind us down to a low level of functionality and stuff, which we don't have our perceptions, then it's a bit of a chicken and the egg. And say parasites can be manifest, or we can acquire them into our gut, and then the parasites run our thought patterns that make us crave carbs and stuff like that. And I don't really want to get into anything more than just saying those sort of things, but they're the sort of patterns and stuff. So proactively changing is quite difficult when you're in that chicken and the egg sort of scenario, right? This is what I'm saying, that there's a potential brewing in with us. And the money system is like this weight pushing down on us from the system, right? And to me, there's going to be blowback. So what I'm sort of wanting to get to is the metaphor of PepsiCo with this thing. So, and to me, there's going to be a spell of the consumerism broke, all right? The spell of consumerism of getting us to endlessly consume, and like the live to work attitude is going to get all flipped, right? And this is the overcoming sort of thing where the falseness and artificial nature of it, literally with processed foods, aren't sort of, to me, going to be sustainable from the system perspective. Right now it's how it is, it's pretty crazy and it's uncertain. But what I'm just doing with these processed foods is, say you look at, I don't know where you are, in Australia the ingredients labels are pretty good, like you can get the number of additives. I think 621 is MSG and 635 is another one. I can't remember the exact ones, but those two I always look out for MSG and all that sort of stuff. Whether it's GMO and all that sort of stuff, it's a bit hard to work out, but we'll just get to the point. Because say from a lot of those chemicals are produced from oil, right? And crude oil, the perception of it is bad. It's an expression of our amazing mother giving us a substance that has enormous potential and benefit from us, right? And while our civilization is what it is, it's not so much about the source of it, it's about the return of the energetic expression in the variable, such as oil. Like when you burn, say, oil and stuff, I think you get, I saw this video a while ago, you get 10 times your return of energy back from the effort. So the input cost to get it isn't as much as getting a return, sort of thing. But a lot of the byproducts of, I found organic chemistry, because that's where oil is, they boil it, and all the different components in oil they use this thing called a fractional distillation technology, where they boil it, and different things have a different boil point. Like methane might have 180 degrees or whatever, I don't remember it, but what I'm getting to is all the additives, the source chemicals from them are from petrochemical sort of stuff. So the oil in that is getting hammered very high, which is increasing the rate of inflation, the costs. And long story short, the flow-on effect is to these producers is a lot of these processed foods and stuff, they're not going to be as financially achievable from a publicly listed corporation to maintain their costs and stuff. They're going to actually increase in costs, and a lot of companies don't make a big margin. A margin is like, say, the 3 or 4% profit on what they produce, all the costs to source it and stuff like that. A lot of businesses are going to go out of business. They're not going to be sustainable. So potentially a lot of these manufactured food products aren't going to be available going forward, which will suck in many respects. Like, you know, I think the universe is better with these options, you know, more options. It doesn't mean you have to have them and that, but sort of the era of our existence is changing, all right? And don't feel guilty about liking them and all that sort of stuff. It's all about experience and all. But what I'm going to get to is, it's not about you or me, but this is an observation about humanity, is that what I feel, alright? Let's just say the processed foods are an aspect of the system, Metatron and all the negative aspects and stuff. They're no longer a viable option, alright? So the people are going to start not being able to get them, not going to be able to afford them. You know, you're seeing the just-in-time network with supermarkets and stuff. They're not stocking everything on the shelves and stuff like that. So people are going to still want to eat. So they'll be looking for alternatives. And when things are very expensive, the choice are reduced. So it comes down to whether people actually want to eat and want to eat something and feel something in their bellies or not, right? And so the result is the potential of organic food like gardenings and eating local and eating what the body needs to endure and get by. The potential of life force in them is going to be increased, right? It's not going to be for everyone and all that. I'm just offering a variable of potential that is there, right? Brewing with this down the track. And so the chances of the individual out there that had that lifestyle to have more life force in their body is going to be increased, which means that potentially the unresolved is going to brew up on top of all the reality in the environment and stuff. But then also the potential on the other side of clearing out that block that relied on this stuff has the potential to be removed as well, right? So what I'm just trying to do is offer an appreciation of the mechanics of the algorithm, of the complexity of 7 billion people and stuff going on right now. And there is an unsustainability of it with how things are. And despite how the horrible beauty of the universe, as Ram Dass says it in that clip that I use many times, I'm trying to offer you a beneficial potential in it if it goes how it goes, as I said. And just contemplate that, right? So what I might do here is offer that Harry Oldfield clip, right, relative to the life force content of organic versus inorganic food, right? Because I have used it before, but I overlay and repeat sort of clips and stuff because I know people, they're more about what's now, and a lot of people don't go back and do the research and revisit stuff. So I just want to offer this, and I'll see you on the other side.
And some of my early research actually began before that date, but 1972, the Curlian photography. Semyon Valentin produced a beautiful method of making electrical pictures using corona discharge around living things and non-living things. And the wonderful thing about living things, ladies and gentlemen, is they gave off a wonderful, vibrant energy field. The inanimate object did not. unless it was like a coin or a cross that had been influenced with healing energy. And this was an artist, I call this the, for those old enough to remember the ad, the Ready Break Man, okay? The wonderful golden glow. The artist's impression is very good, but I have to tell you, in reality, and this evening you'll be seeing the reality of it, the artist's impression is a shadow of what the living energy field around a human being and all other living things are in reality. This was one of the first Kirlian pictures in colour I took of my thumb. No members of the local constabulary here, I hope. Good, good. I'm still incognito. Right, okay. And this is actually the corona discharge and the energy. There's no lens or focal plane in a Kirlian camera. There's a moisture screen above the film, and there's an electronic plate, and an electromagnetic field is passed around it. I'll be showing you the setup for those of you I know in Glastonbury who dabble. I'll show you how to do it. And it's in my books, of course. Thank you. And here's the apparatus. We have here, ladies and gentlemen, inside there, a modified Tesla coil, which is a pulsed high-frequency coil. Here we have a DC power source so that there is no fluctuations from mains frequency or interference coming down the wiring. And here in these early days, my design of a function generator that had pulse ranges of very below and beyond human frequency ranges of ears, but these were electromagnetic field pulses with different waveforms. And we sent this pulsed high frequency, high voltage into something like a leaf, which was earthed, and this is the plate, this is reflective dielectric covering, and that reflected all the light back to the film, which was underneath the object to be photographed. Of course, when people put their fingers and hands on it, they didn't need to be earthed, unless they liked wires attached to them, of course, and then we obliged, of course. That goes down rather well in America, where certain electrocution methods are still used for capital punishment. But it's wasted here. I'll remember that, not to do it again. And here, right, I know in Glastonbury you're interested in the paranormal and ghosts and phantoms. Because when I was an ordinary reductionist thinking young man in my early days of learning about science, we didn't entertain such things. But over the years, my mind has changed. And it began with looking at a leaf. Okay, can you see this leaf here? It's a Canadian maple leaf, but it's not all there. If you look very carefully, ladies and gentlemen, from here to there is no physical leaf. It's a phantom energy picture. Okay? And Roger and I came up with a term long before string theory in physics for a subatomic energetic matrix on which these physical molecules for everything around people, the universe, trees, stones, you name it, on which these physical molecules are strung. Okay? And it's this organizing field. Okay, morphogenic field resonance as well has been brought forward by people, various researchers and other things, of course, which I give due credit to. Thank you. Now, I wasn't satisfied with that partial phantom. What would happen if you took the whole leaf away? Well, I tried that and there was nothing left. So I left a central stem of vital force, okay, and ripped off all the leaves, which were there. That's the control, by the way, on the left, what it was like before I ripped off all the leaves. The leaves, the secret for a good phantom, 100%, is they have to be burned, okay? Just like in India, you know, the physical remnants of this space-time are burned, and therefore the energetic process is released and carries on instantly. The other thing to mention is the plant has to be, for this 100%, organically grown. If it's seeing chemical fertilization, any time in its growing life period, you will only get partial phantoms, as we discovered in the 1970s, before organic farming was popular. Here, by the way, I started to grow organic cabbages. And as there's farmers and growers here, this part of the country, I hope. at least with the apples and cider, at least, I hope. And one of the scourges of the organic gardener is the cabbage white caterpillar. Okay? Now, the reason why I'm maligning it, ladies and gentlemen, so much is because of what I did a few seconds later. Please show the ghastly deed. A very painless injection of potassium cyanide, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a good point at this stage to announce that I also do children's parties and weddings, and Andy will be taking bookings after the presentation, or Martin down there. We'll see. And no, don't do this at home, ladies and gentlemen. I am an expert. Okay, as my dad used to say, an X is something that was, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. And so after this injection, you can see that the life force was put out. It was just like putting a hose on a bonfire. Light went out. There's fallout from the creature, but that creature, I assure you, is quite dead. And that's the before, just to remind you, and the after. And the reason why I put healthy there is because it had a last meal of my organic cabbages. And they were beautiful, just done with a knob of butter. They were gorgeous, you know. So he died very happy. I even put the butter on for him, you know. So, anyway, thank you. And here's some of that organic material, the organic cabbage. Okay, beautiful. It's not a galaxy in some thing taken from the Hubble telescopes, taken in the early 1970s with this discovery. But you can do terrible things to an organic piece of material too, especially if you put it in a pressure cooker or stew it from hours and hours. How many of you of my generation remember school dinners? And you'd walk through the school gate and you could smell what you were going to be having for lunch, because they'd been cooking from about 7 o'clock in the morning. Don't overcook your vegetables, ladies and gentlemen, because it takes out the life force. And this vitality, we also proved, is transferred to a human subject or an animal subject who eats the organic material. These aren't some supernova suns in a distant galaxy. They are organic oranges with the energy field around them in Kirlian. Here we have an organic clove of garlic, and it was so energetic, ladies and gentlemen, with this effervescence of energy. It was even sending out, well, I didn't know what they were in those days, but almost orb-like structures right across the photography plate, several centimeters.
Welcome back. I hope you liked it. I like Harry Oldfield. He's a good guy, and he's been around for a while, and he's got a good heart and stuff. I'd love to get some of his tech. I've got a bit of a absent-minded professor, mad scientist in me and stuff, obviously, like creating my ability, my modality in that. Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And so why am I offering all this? It's an opportunity, by you being a thorough explorer, including me and the variables of who you are, to just observe yourself and see what you're doing and what's going on. My guess, a lot of you have already know this stuff innately. It's a instinctive aspect to you, and you've done your homework on all this sort of stuff. But what I wanted to do is just offer many variables and incentivize potential for us in it. Right? And food and nutrition is something that I've wanted to drop for a while. It's a complex thing because I'm not a doctor, and this sort of environment doesn't really appreciate alternative perspectives, but I'm absolutely opposite the stream of all the stuff that's going on, right? I'll show you my image about contrarian view. So this is the one I introduced in Echoes Part 9 just recently. But you see, maybe humanity is going through a trough. And I did include it a bit upside down in the last one as well, because I was focusing on the variables I was trying to bring and stuff, but just see maybe civilization is, the line there is going down, alright? And the system, whoops, I'm going the wrong way, back to front. So say it's going down like that, but the system is pushing us down and all that, but where our ability to endure the stuff that I said with a big level and overview is pretty epic, right? And so if the system wants us down and limited in that, there's a underlying ally frequency that is offering potential. And if I use the contrarian view, so the pressure on society and stuff relative to inflation is putting a lot of pressure on stuff, but the will to survive, outlast and outcome, all that is absolutely an aspect of human nature, right? So I feel that the pressure putting on is going to generate the genius byproduct in people to adapt, right? And so there's a lot of purpose to a lot of things, and while people around you might struggle in that, you don't have to. You can be the example and stuff, right? And you can make choices, and my advice is start doing this now. Start realizing it and having the courage and will to change proactively rather than reacting to stuff, right? And food and nutrition is a massive ally to your body. So probably your body, like I'm very fortunate with the market I have. I can walk through a lot of food and a lot of different frequencies of the same food and tell what my body wants and stuff. So what I might do is just round it out. I hope this is beneficial for you to contemplate and just see, and it's an opportunity for me to introduce nourishment and foods and different concepts and some teachers that might be worth going and exploring, and just putting a fair bit of information relative to pattern recognition and aegis synthesizers and stuff. So what I want to do is just round it out with the second part of the Ashayana clip, with the big overlying structure and stuff. And this clip is really awesome. I think it's about 10 minutes and stuff, so there's a lot of information in it. But this gets into how the new age era, the channeling and off-world and all that sort of stuff is set up for failure as well. And it was set up in the mid-1700s, mid-1800s, like 750. They were strategizing to set us up for failure now that long ago, and it goes with the start relative to the Atlantean conspiracy and the Luciferian conspiracy. And if you watch Echoes Part 9, all the Babylon Massacre and all the stuff done to us and stuff, and that's why I made this video, and I want to call it Our Ability to Endure, Outlast, and Overcome all the stuff going on, because we are so freaking epic. And I went through my city and I just felt like all this stuff is so far beyond most and stuff, and most people are just happy having their lives and that, and I don't really want to take away from that. It's fascinating, but I just want to thank you if you're willing to contemplate this stuff, because to me this stuff gives the overview of what is going on, and it makes a lot of sense, and all the Metatron sort of stuff, and that's why I showed this, right? And if you listen to this clip, that's why I'm so highly discerning of the off-world sort of stuff. Even though what I've done, I'm raising my discernment pretty high, and I really, as I said at the start, highly recommend going and looking at microcellular exopolitics. If you've been thorough with the Ashayana stuff, just have a listen to the stuff they're putting out there, alright? And how many in the community are gravitating and giving their power away to all that stuff. And then just observe you, why you might think how you are, but in a way you're not. You're at least willing to contemplate these perspectives when very few are at the moment. So I finished off in the light. Look at that. So I just want to thank you for being here, and I hope you get something more from this. I really highly recommend going and looking at the last month or so of videos, particularly the last 2 echoes. I think you'll get a lot, and Yeah, appreciate your body, like how amazing it is, despite all the stuff that's done to it. You as an individual to endure so much stuff to even get through the reality to this and even contemplate it. I'm grateful for you to have that courage and to include me in your journey, as I say all the time, because having this outlet is, I feel very fortunate to anyone listening to me. But yeah, I want to thank you again and see how you go and integrate this into your synthesizer that you are and your pattern recognition skills, and maybe hunger for more, and see what your body does, all right? And love your body and appreciate it. And maybe it's been trying to get through to you. So those skin suit technologies, consciousness that I'm talking to that's trying to get through, you're welcome. But hang in there, guys. It's about enduring and appreciating and owning the fact that you're one of the few that in this amazing planet that's offering us so much, you're one of the few that are here. So until next time, guys, lots of love. Andre out.
Arthur and his knights were unable to fulfill the entire Emerald Covenant mission of disengaging the 25500 BC Nibiruian diodic crystal grid network at Stonehenge, England, to free Solar Stargate 4 from remote Nibiruian Anunnaki control in preparation for the anticipated 2017 SAC and intended fulfillment of the Planetary Christos realignment mission. Since King Arthur buried the Ark of the Covenant gold box in 608 AD, the Luciferian Knights Templar, Jehovian and Draconian Anu Melchizedek Illuminati human lines have quested to claim the Ark of the Covenant gold box from its resting place in Lohas Atlantis. To conceal knowledge of the unidentified Lohas Atlantis location of the Ark box until it could be located and confiscated, the Luciferian Knights Templar, under direction of Galactic Federation, began a crusade to destroy or distort any remaining records of Atlantis. Further distortion of historical records and intentional planting of falsified Atlantean maps were tactics used to deter competing Illuminati human forces from retrieving the Ark box, and thus control of Earth's Templar before the Luciferian Knights Templar could stake their own wrongful claim. After the 608 AD Arturian Grail quest, competing Illuminati human Anu Melchizedek races progressively rose to positions of political power within the global arena, launching continuing campaigns of disinformation and historical distortion. Genocide crusades against each other and against angelic human and Magi Grail King 12 tribes races. In 1244 AD, the Cathars Magi Grail King families of southern France were destroyed by the Omicron Draconian Hell Church of Rome in the Albigensian Crusade. Many murderous crusades followed, including the decimation of the Bruja Atlantis and Mua Lemuria Magi Grail King Amerind lines of North America in the European quest for the New World. It was long known among the competing Knights Templar, Jehovian and Nephidim are Omicron Draconian Anu Melchizedek Illuminati humans, inner circles, it was long known that the New World of America was the old world of which Bruja Atlantis, the location of the central control site Gruel Point, which is Gate 2, for Earth's planetary shields, was once part. The competing quest for control of Lohas Atlantis Stargate 11, the Bruja Atlantis Gruel Point Gate 2, and other Stargate locations in Earth's Templar complex have been at the heart of the continual conflict and race hatred and dominion campaigns throughout our recorded human history. The three competing factions of Anu Melchizedek races, representing the Luciferian, Jehovian, and Draconian dominion agendas, emerged from our ancient pre-Atlantean past, through Lemuria, Atlantis, and our early recorded history, into the powerful global infrastructure of the contemporary interior world government, Illuminati, One World Order agenda. As part of the planned, premeditated Atlantean conspiracy strategy, in 1750 AD, the Galactic Federation and Pleiadian, Nibiruan, Luciferian, and Anunnaki races began making remote contact with chosen ones, descendants of the respective Anu Melchizedek Illuminati races, who carried the DNA Templar implantation, allowing for telepathic rapport from their genetic ancestral line. After rising to covert power in Europe and various other regions, Galactic Federation and the Pleiadian Nibiruans motivated the American Revolution and the founding of the United States of America via secret society, occult school inspiration of their Luciferian Knights Templar Anu Melchizedek Illuminati races. This contact progressed from infiltration of ancient traditional religious control dogmas with their inner circle elite occultists into what has become the New Age channeling movement. The New Age movement is primarily dominated by Jehovian, Sirius A, Luciferian, Pleiadian, Nibiruan, Marduk Necromaton Luciferian of Alpha Centauri and Sirius B, Luciferian centaurs of Omega Centauri, and some Necromaton and Dromi channel contacts. Following covert surveillance that began in 1916, the Zeta, the Little Greys, those races began physical interaction with Earth on behalf of the Zephilium, the reptile insect people of the Draconian agenda races of Orion. In the 1930s and 40s, Illuminati human Anu Melchizedek descendants of the Zephilium Zeta, Omicron Dacronian, the Dragon Moths, and Odedicron Reptile Avians, Draconian agenda races of Orion, entered One World Order Dominion treaties with the Orion Zeta Regalian races. The Zeta treaties initiated the formation of Majestic 12, which began the contact phenomena of what has become the contemporary UFO movement. In 1983, the Orion Omicron and Odedicron Dacronian agenda legions assumed the leadership role in the Zeta Treaty agreements. In the 1930s, the Necromaton, beetle, reptile, insect, hominid races of Andromeda became involved with certain factions of the Draconian Illuminati human interior government, initiating the Men in Black phenomena. Some assisting the Luciferian, Pleiadian, Nibiruan races of the Luciferian Covenant, others supporting the Draconian agenda races. In November 1992, the Emerald Covenant Maharaji Blue Human and Azurite races of Sirius B, the Ceres Pleiadian avian hominid races of Alcyone, and the Lyran Syrian Anahazi female hominid founders races negotiated the Pleiadian Syrian agreements. In these agreements, the Luciferian, Pleiadian, Nibiruan Anunnaki races, Galactic Federation, and a few Jehovian Anunnaki races agreed to enter the Emerald Covenant Peace Treaty for co-evolution with the angelic humans of Earth in a united stand against the Draconian Legion's anti-Christic dominion agenda. The Anunnaki races vowed to assist in the 2000-2017 stellar activation cycle Emerald Covenant Planetary Christos Realignment mission. They promised to disengage Nibiruan Diodic Crystal Grid control of Earth's Templar, and to return Solar Stargate 4 control over to the founders' Emerald Covenant races by the year 2000, to prevent the scheduled pole shift that Galactic Federation had intended to orchestrate as per the Atlantean conspiracy Luciferian Covenant. In January 2000, When the stellar activation commenced, most of the Anunnaki legions defected from the 1992 Pleiadian-Sirian agreements, reverting to their Luciferian Covenant Dominion agenda. On July 5th, 2000, further negotiations with the Anunnaki legions culminated in their return to the Emerald Covenant via an agreement called the Treaty of Altair. They were required to release the Nibiru and Diodic Crystal Grid and Solar Stargate 4 by August 2000. On September 12, 2000, the Necromaton Andromi Men in Black offered co-conspiratorial deals to Luciferian and Jehovian Anunnaki and Draconian races. Galactic Federation and most members of the Anunnaki legions defected from the Treaty of Altair to join the United Resistance. That's resistance to the Emerald Covenant and Planetary Christos Realignment Mission. The United Resistance is a co-conspiratorial plot through which resistance legions intended to covertly evacuate small numbers of their respective chosen ones and clear Earth's real estate via pole shift between 2003 and 2008 to achieve fulfillment of the Luciferian Covenant Atlantean conspiracy agenda between 2008-2012. On September 12, 2000, the United Resistance Legions issued an edict of war against Emerald Covenant Guardian races if the Emerald Covenant Guardian races did not withdraw support for the angelic human 12 tribes of Earth. The Guardian nations politely refused to abandon humans and Earth to fallen angelic dominion. They didn't use that language. We are now facing the final conflict drama of the ancient Atlantean conspiracy. As the Atlantean conspiracy advanced from the 9558 BC Atlantean flood, Emerald Covenant races knew that the 2000-2017 AD stellar activation cycle will be the time for fulfillment of the planetary Christos realignment, and that if negotiations with fallen legions were not successful, the final conflict drama would ensue. In preparation for these anticipated events, the Magi Grail King lineage Indigo children, types 1 and 2, have been incarnating on Earth for the past 100 years, since around 1900. The Magi races are here to assist the angelic human 12 tribes of contemporary Earth in completing the Emerald Covenant mission that King Arthur and Essene Jeshua before him were unable to fully complete.
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.